Barthel.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Platt. I have two things for council. Number one, I did hear back from Senator Ford regarding the funds that we were allocated, that we requested, if you recall. I had asked for $1,465,000 for various street projects. We did receive $765,000 from those funds. And of course, I expressed our gratefulness to Senator Ford and the other folks. Obviously, there's a lot of people grabbing a lot of dollars, so it's still $765,000. Appropriate them when we do next calendar year paving projects. I do apologize to council. We do need to appoint a city clerk because, as you know, Ms. Wall is no longer with the city. What I was going to do is I was going to recommend Courtney Taylor, who you all know, to replace her, but I will have a resolution for that at next month's meeting. Appointing Courtney as the new clerk. And then the last thing I have is at the last council meeting, Councilman Zelt had asked me had suggested or requested the sign to be removed at the Delaware Street and 6th Street traffic light stop sign intersection. So I did reach out to DelDOT, and as I believe I mentioned last month, they are requesting or have requested federal funding to be used to pave the intersection, to pave that intersection. As part of those requested funds, I was told that those signs and the project will be terminated once those funds either are received or are not, and then they go through by completing the project. So at this point, we're leaving the signs and everything as they are. And that's all I have.
Chief.
Thank you. First, I know last month we talked about two investigations that were all going involving bank robberies of the Whistler's Airport Plaza. And I'm proud to report that our investigators were able to make arrests in both cases. One's from the June 9th robbery, the other from the June 30th robbery. Two separate individuals both charged with multiple counts of robbery. They were linked to other robberies in various jurisdictions. So we had some help from state police, the county police, the FBI, and then obviously our investigators as well. So very glad to clear those up. And the only other thing I have is we'll talk briefly about, hopefully briefly, but it may trigger a response. The issue with flooding in Delta. Mr. Barthel and I met with DelDOT after the latest flooding incident. To kind of rehash a plan we developed several years ago that was not getting implemented. That plan includes, most importantly, for advance notice of the flooding on Route 9, especially trying to get into the city. What's been happening is, especially in rush hour, by the time people figure out it's the road's closed, they're turning around and they're really turned into a mess. First responders were overwhelmed for several hours trying to figure that out. So, and I know local residents are suffering through that. So we met with DelDOT, and what we basically said was we recognized that they were probably in their 24th hour. They didn't, I don't know how many sites in that time frame, and they're struggling to get us in time to matter. So what we asked for was permission to, after we received permission to close the road, for us to actually do it. So at some point we should get equipment sent to us, and we'll keep on site. When we say it's time to close the road, DelDOT gives us permission because it is a state maintained road. We implement the closure with our public works department, but the fire department, they're willing to help if need be, and then obviously this will include significant advance warning, directing folks away from downtown, away from trying to force the lake. And there was also talk about long-term projects where we have signs that are up permanently that we can activate either through a triggering mechanism that is in the roadway that when water reaches to a certain level, it activates signs on the outskirts of the city that direct traffic away from Route 9, or we think can be manually operated or something. So we did make some progress with DelDOT, and I think this is going to make a huge difference. We can implement it a lot sooner than what's happening with the most recent rainfall. That's all.
Thanks. Any questions? just a quick question. Will the permission happen every single time, or is there just like a one-time thing? And then you can kind of go in and close the road?
That's a great question. Anytime it opens, we would ask permission to pre-close it, so it would have to be an individual event.
Okay. And the communication with LDOT happens pretty quickly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have two questions. I noticed Narcan. Do people getting better, or is the public just administering it? We don't know about it, or you don't know about it.
So this few months that I increased the history, we have zero overdoses, zero administrations. I don't know that the trend that says that we're doing better. I do know that. So. But it's
They don't. We met at the grade of the road, and then they told.
that's what we talked about again, was having something that triggers permanent fixtures. Although.
So yes, the progress made with that meeting inside the group.
No, well, no, I don't know really where they are on that.
Add to that, okay, where we are, as I understand it, is that they've actually, I believe, received federal funding, as I understand it, to do the entire coast, Route 9 coast, and but they're still engineering the temporary fix. So, if you remember, we had talked about a permanent fix.
Correct.
And the concerns we had was that, well, is this temporary fix going to get in the way of the permanent fix, which we had been working on since 2015? So the answer to your question is basically is that they've received the funding, from what I understand, they're engineering the temporary fix. They're supposed to get back to us when they have an answer for that. And I also believe is that they're also simultaneously engineering the permanent fix.
Okay.
I don't have timelines or anything on that at this point. That's my understanding.
Quick question. Sure. So are we on all of 9th Street, or are we also on 9th and Ferry Cutoff? Because that just flooded really the first time since I've been.
The temporary, as I understand it, did not include, I believe they went out and looked at the ferry cutoff portion of it, but I don't believe that's part of what they're engineering at this point. And the flooding that occurred on that, well, it floods.
Well, I know it floods, but not as bad as this time.
Then I don't believe that that's part of what they're looking at. I don't think so.
Something potentially causing it to make it worse right now, or is it just we got too much rain?
That first one, I'll jump in on that one. I think that first one, we didn't have any rain for a month.
Yeah. That
The ground was pretty hard.
on that first downpour. I mean, and I see the chief back there and our chief, of course. I mean, they can tell you, I mean, because of that significant rainfall, the drought that conditions we had, it all just added to, it just exacerbated everything. Now, this last rain we had Sunday, I went out and the ferry cutoff section was flooded, but not as bad as the event you're referring to, correct?
I can tell you that the last time it flooded like that was 1999. So that's pretty rare.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, thank you.
No. Howard, look you first. Yeah, right.
I don't have anything for this evening, thank you.
I have a few items. When did we get an update on the dog park and where we're at with moving forward with it?
Yeah, as I'm still waiting for an MOA from or an MOU, depending on what exactly it is they have to put together. The trustees have not sent anything over to me. The last communication I have from them was that their attorney, Andy Taylor, had put together a licensing agreement for that purpose, and that was a few months ago. I still do not have that licensing agreement or anything from the trust at this point on that.
So we're waiting on the trust to get back to us.
Correct.
Last month I talked about Juneteenth. These year we have to make changes, with the contracts and things like that. Any update on what we would need to do to move forward with that for a holiday?
No, I didn't do anything on that. I thought that the advice was from the solicitor to wait till we got closer to the time frame of the negotiation for the next agreement. And then negotiate those together. That's what I thought we all had agreed to. In other words, I have not opened any negotiations with anybody in 30 days.
Well, if you don't mind, do we need an ordinance proclaiming it a holiday before we do the negotiations or after?
I'm gonna give you a flat, I don't know.
Okay. I mean, we have
It's me up too, so
We have
I'll
some
get-
time, we can maybe bring that back for next month.
Also, the bandstand, any update
I
on
haven't done anything on it. I've not researched that. Other than when I had prior to, council, looking at it, the last council looking at it, and then we been discussing the funding period, but we just allocated the funding for it a few weeks ago, but I have not.
Is it possible for next meeting to start getting some options?
It is.
Start looking. Also, at the last meeting, we're talking about the parking spots in front of the city office. And I think we can change some of the wording on that.
We'll talk about that, the wording of those signs.
Help me. So right now, there's two, I think, there are two spots that have things noting it's for the city use. And no one else will use it. I don't know if we can maybe modify that, so we can say it's get parking or whatever we want to do, something that open up some parking.
So the only thing I would say about creating a sign that has, if it's dual use parking, enforcing or monitoring, that's going to be challenging. So if you're going to dedicate a spot, dedicate a spot. If you don't dedicate it, then it's up to council to change that. But I would really caution you from creating a scenario where there's a dual purpose to a spot.
I saw the spot today, I see it, I know, I'm like, I can't park there. So it's like two spots that are being used, it sounds like most time you're. Maybe not. Out.
It's a general park.
Parking there.
I mean, right now, they say official use only. What I was asking is, can someone who's coming in to pay their tax bill use those spots, but they don't know that because of the wording of the sign? So could we change the wording on the sign to say, for those conducting business with the city, or, I don't know, I'm just tossing it.
I would ask, do you need that? If you don't need it, then take the sign out. If you don't think that there should be a sign that says, official city use only, in other words, that's where city officials park. If that's not the intent, and you just want to open spaces up, if people are confused, then you remove the sign.
Well, perhaps just some information, maybe in the newsletter to say the parking spaces designated official use only are available to the general public if they are conducting business in the city office or while they are conducting business in the office. And not change what the signs say, but just, because it's residents that need to know this, not visitors.
Right, so my question would be, do you want something marked there? If you want to open it up, then you would remove the sign.
Although I guess perhaps someone coming to get a business license might not be a resident. But at least if residents knew it was available, that'd be a step in the right direction. I don't know, just throw that out there.
Last item I. Attending all the different committees. And I was able to slice and dice the data just to see like, are people coming and attending? I'm gonna share the spreadsheet with Mr. Barthel to see maybe we go forward. But the planning commission, there's one person, I'm not gonna throw out names right now, but one person for 5, 6, 7, 8 meetings they have not attended. So you said that there is a process if someone's not attending that we
As I
can
mentioned
follow?
in the charter, there is a process for removing people. Council. I'd have to go back and reread it. And, you know,
So it might be for council, but might not be for the committees.
Committees as well, I believe.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and read it.
So, I'll share this with you and we can get out to the rest of the council people, but it definitely is eye-opening to be able to see it in a way of like, who's not coming, the small people that are coming to, meetings and, say, yes, I will help out. Thank you.
First of all, I want to wish everybody happy 4th of July. I hope you guys had a good time. Whether here or anywhere you guys choose to be, your dogs weren't too scared like mine for fireworks, but I wanted to, one more time, because this came after our communication last time, congratulate Miss Alice Reel and Councilperson Souter for their forward thinking and securing a grant for the sea level through the Sea Level Rise Task Force. I think these record heats recently kind of prove how these things can change drastically and why these things are so important. So thank you guys for pushing through for your leadership there. I have received communication from Ms. Swift on some of the playground progress that has been done in the town for Battery Park. And basically, I'm just going to give a little update that playground demolition is happening as we currently speak, and installation is going to happen within a month or two. I don't know, but there's a couple, pieces waiting for. I think ADA compliant pathways are being kind of the key piece right now that need to be first paved, and then we can install the equipment once that is kind of set up. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But one thing I've learned through that email is that initially the slides in the phase 1 were supposed to be removed and just located at a different location. But I've learned that they're going to be removed altogether because it costs the city a little more. Well, I don't know how much more, but it costs the city more to remove them to a new location, as well as potentially might hurt the equipment, I guess, in that process than just demolition. I wanted to ask you, the storyteller, about that a little more. I wasn't in those meetings. I just wanted to learn a little more about that and what can we do. I think that's probably the
My
most.
understanding was that that the equipment, that's the newest equipment, I'll kind of address it that way, which are the swings. So we're going to try to save the swings, but the slides and what have you, because of the way they're installed and because of their age and because of the liability, well, the liability, but in addition to that, the inability to dig them up and move them, from what I understand, is a rather lofty task. And because of their age and the fact that they wouldn't be easily, and it would take weeks, from what I understand, to actually try to remove them and save them. So what we just made the decision that it would be easier to just go in and take the slides out and get rid of them. And the idea is hopefully to save, like I said, the swings and potentially move those to another park.
Is it possible I know that there's a phase 2 of this project, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon due to, phase 2 probably being bigger than phase 1. Is it possible to have a intermediate phase just for slides to be added on our radar that can be installed? Rather low, expedited.
I would kind of leave that, I think, up to the committee, because I believe they had 3 phases that they had initially talked about. So I would really leave that up to them. And then as far as how they would get the funding, again, those would all have to be part of that discussion. But I don't know if you're talking about just bringing in some slides and saying, all right, we're gonna add a few slides here, like what the cost is to that versus we're gonna do another significant phase, which would be, I mean, this one's about 160,000. So, I do know that they have discussed phases 2 and 3. I don't know all the details.
Yeah, what I don't want to happen is what I initially understood that, sorry, Mr. Bradley, you're about to say something, is that we're without slides for a significant amount of time in our main playground here in town, because it is probably one of the most used playground equipment. So I just wanted to see if we can fit it with this phase 1 almost, so we're not paying for installation costs, twice. Something that was supposed to be done.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
The slides that we had now were all attached to the playground, to the playground equipment itself. It wasn't an independent slide.
It's like a little structure, yeah.
Right. I guess in the meanwhile, I guess I'll turn it to your committee and not waste everybody's time. Like maybe to put them independent slides and stay alone. For kids to do that instead of trying to put the whole structure back up.
Okay. Anything that, gets.
Like that myself,
Yeah.
so.
See, I think if those guys can make it, they're the ones who've been really into the details of the equipment itself. If they can come back and look at it and say, we replaced a piece of equipment out at Dobbinsville, for example, that had a crack and we had to remove it. And we went to Suzanne and we were pricing it out. And then the folks who were Copman or Copian or whatever, the folks who were the equipment currently at Battery Park, we had them look at that. So I guess what I'm getting at is if they want to look at something and price it out during the course of the year, at this point, they certainly could do that. But I think they're more in tune to what they're looking for aesthetically, from a liability perspective and then, the equipment, I would kind of leave it up to them. To at least come back and say, this is what we'd like to do.
Fair enough. I had a question about Dog Park as well. Thank you for already sharing about the MOU with the trust. I'm guessing because they're not having meetings right now, perhaps. Things are going a little slower, but I've attended their last meeting in which they shared that they have shared additional locations with the city. I just wanted to inquire about that.
I'm sorry.
Allocations for the dog park. So I just wanted to ask you whether you have received any, word in that as well, on that or.
I have not.
I think that was a general conversation that was here at one of the council meetings where somebody suggested maybe move in Dobbinsville or somewhere different, like over here at Battery Park. I think that was just a general.
No, actually, in the trustee meeting, one of the trustees mentioned that one of the subcommittees that are working with that particular project mentioned that they have sent over several additional locations to the city for review. So I just wanted to inquire about that.
You attend trust meetings.
I did, it wasn't an additional location, it was alternate location.
Yeah,
Okay.
They didn't want to have it, because I think the amount of mulch, the amount of construction. So they were talking about another location in the Rockland Station.
sorry, that's what I meant to say. The alternative location.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric.
In roughly the same area?
Yes.
Oh,
Still,
okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And then my last question, well, a little update for time. Chief kind of already talked about flooding. So I'm just gonna add to that. It's I already reached out after the first flooding, big flooding to Mr. Bartel to see, what is already being done in the city. And I was, explained to me that we're doing a great deal about, looking into that. So I'm gonna be looking to sit down with Mr. Bartel to figure out what other, resources we can put into use so we can not be locked out of the city every time we have a flooding. We'll keep you guys posted on that. Hopefully we can push some stuff to build that with a higher priority. So that's all I have.
Mr. Davis. I'm going to pass also, so we'll go to public comments. We will limit it to 3 minutes and just come to the podium, identify yourself, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
And a week ago, I left the packet at your table today. And I did forward the information regarding Valerie Leary and unethical behavior in the last month. By you ignoring Valerie Leary's behavior and that of Kim Burkmore, you think if you mentioned that, you say, well, you have ignored your code of conduct. And by ignoring the behavior of Valerie Leary and Kim Burkmore, you have violated the trust of the citizens of the Capitol. It all says as much about all of your character. I have 3 questions. Why did Kim Burkmore resign after 18 years of the city?
Question 2.
My second question is how much did the investigation into Valerie Leary's behavior cost the city?
Question 3.
And should Valerie Leary be responsible for reimbursing the city?
There are your questions.
I'm sorry,
There are your questions.
I have one more.
Okay.
The taxpaying citizens of this country would like to know. And this is the FOIA documents are completed back and forth through Kim and Valerie. And there's also a synopsis of what was said and different the way they put that. It's not just a pile of paper. It's very well explained. That is not all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Not gonna take notes from me either.
No, sir.
Mr. Gross. There's personal conflict, let's just.
No, it's more than a person.
Mr. Gross.
Involves the whole city. If she's not merely reporting,
Mr. Gross.
it should be reported.
Okay, you get 3 minutes, sir, but we circle back.
It's not personal. Absolutely not. Fair reporting, which you would never done. Anyway, Bill Gross, 1301 13th Street. I just find it incredibly hard to believe that Valerie Leary's campaign has been let run this long. There's absolutely no reason that she should be allowed to run for anything or any office in the city of Newcastle. She's violated ethics rules. She's refused to answer questions when asked by our city solicitor. She's worked for the Weekly as a city councilman, which is definitely unethical. Even after she declared her candidacy, she was using her city council email address. She was single-handedly one of the people that voted to have a candidate once they decided to run for another office that he made step down. That was 6-7 years ago when John DeMonte decided to run. So she signed off on that resolution, but yet she herself violated that rule. It's just hard to understand how council can't step in, or has not stepped in, as of yet. Delaware Public Integrity Commission has received paperwork on this issue. And contrary to our city solicitor saying that it was last cycle, so it has no bearing now. Well, actually, they will be ruling differently because it is still an issue that has not been resolved. And as soon as she lawyered up and received used to answer questions, you should have been more forceful and been willing to spend the city money to find out what the root of everything is. And one of our longstanding city workers was terminated or given an option to step down. If that's not a smoking gun, what more do you need? So again, I will prepare and I'll make sure council gets all the information and whatever I receive from the Public Integrity Commission, you'll receive as well. But I'm asking the council put into motion that the election be held until the results of that investigation are done. And I would certainly question our city solicitor's merits as our council, because I don't think he's following law.
Thank you. Anyone else? Your next, Mr.
Dorsey, I'm making a statement at council meeting that I want it on record that the editor of the weekly paper was used by some townspeople to inform them about Newcastle official notices. Recently published an editorial with scurrilous accusations about someone clearly identifiable. She claimed that unnamed persons committed, quote, self-serving and libel, and pointed to the trust of pride of financial and legal malfeasance with no proof. It's all been disproved, unquote. These claims are entirely false. They are also detrimental to the residents of Newcastle. Because the trustees control assets of millions of dollars that were given to the use and benefit of everyone in town, good management of the trust and knowledge of how they are handling it are vital for everyone who lives here. What I have said and what I reported in Clarion Call and the information I sent as former trustee to the Department of Justice and the Investigative Act. As proof of my veracity, read the online trustee minutes and see that a DOJ lawyer has been attending trustee board meetings. Notice that in February, a new conflict of interest statement was drawn up, input by the DOJ, and at the same time, the trustee let a conflict resign. It's high time the trustees let us know what they're doing and start working for our interests, not theirs. Thank you. Mr. Borzel.
So. Vote Miller.
Give about 40 seconds, by the way.
From the last meeting. You're tough, Mr. Miller, you're tough.
Well, that's not a rule. Well, anyway, I wanted to speak a little bit about the flooding there at the very cut off, but you guys stole my thunder a little bit, so I won't ask everything I was going to ask, but if the state is responsible, for maintaining that road, explain in more detail how that relates to the water, particularly there, in front of the guy, the mechanical car mechanic and Three Countries Pizza. I know it's making worse now than it's been in a lot of years, but it has been pretty bad there a lot of times. And it's dangerous because the cars don't slow down that much. I was there the other day, you're taking your life in your hands coming out of there. They were just zooming through that water there on the shoulder of the road. But anyway, what exactly would DelDOT do? Apart from raising the road, I don't know all the details. I'm told that a lot of this goes back years and years. It has something to do with the silt and I don't know, buildup of whatever. There's some blockage where this water is not, the tributaries or whatever, the water is not going where it's supposed to go, so it winds up in the street. Does any of that responsibility fall on the owners of that land, or is it like is DelDOT willing to do something where they go back off of the, off of the highway? I'm trying to get a picture of what they're going to do. It just seems bizarre to me after all these years, because I know I brought this up some years back, pre-COVID, complaining about this, and I don't remember what was said at the time. It was just a thing, yeah, we're aware of it, and we're looking into it. But I just can't believe with technology like it is, that something like that. Yeah, flooding is one thing, but that's just ridiculous. Okay, so anyway, that's one thing I would like to know. What exactly would DelDOT do? Apart from raising the road or something like that, because I'm not sure that's going to work. That water's got to go somewhere. All right, maybe you could put sewer openings around there. I'm not sure if that would help or not. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to bring up now that I'm on this topic is if there's a better spot for a traffic light, I can't imagine a better one than that intersection. I'm amazed that there's not accidents there. Maybe there are, and I'm just not aware of them. But it is just crazy what people do there. And I'll tell you this now, very little of it is, it can't possibly be people who live in town, okay? Because I'm talking about the people that come, from Wilmington direction, and they just come and just zoom around that curve. And they don't yield. When you get beyond, that curve, you're supposed to yield people coming out of that, that parking lot. And because I was coming out of there, they do not yield. Believe me, they do not yield. Extremely dangerous. And if you're coming out the other way, trying to exit from that parking lot out onto Route 9, particularly, in the dinner hour, good luck. Good luck. You're taking, your life in your hands there. So again, like the intersection on 7th Delaware, you got traffic coming from like 9 different directions. So I think we need a traffic light.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
You can search by 22.
Keep it brief. I just want to encourage my neighbors and those of us still tied up in bickering over election integrity and whatnot to take it out of the ballot box. Go vote. I think the last thing we want is more government involved in the process. I think some of the attacks being made are really uncalled for. I think they're sexist, they're rude. I think that if you have an issue with someone,
go out, have a cup of coffee, have a vote up here, talk about it. Take your issues out at the ballot box, go and vote, stop sitting in this room, complaining, and then not showing up on A5. It's a community now where people are just attacking, and it's really just sounds a little unfair. I think everybody should just don't vote. That's all of our problems. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Bill Emery Ball. You know, you saw my husband. I stood up here back, I think in November, and swore I wouldn't stand at this podium again. But the high water rise of a few weeks ago brought me back up here. Previous to the meeting tonight, I handed out pictures to the council members. Mr. Barthel handed one to the chief, and I put some at the back here. So I'm the one that is responsible for the pictures that everybody has. I'm one of the ones who used to walk around the marshes out there behind Van Dyke Village, behind the old William Penn, which is, I think, Newcastle Elementary, and behind Three Countries Pizza now. I'm the one who's kind of saying that tributaries back there that you see in one of the pictures, that one picture is about 40 years old. You see the tributaries that are there. Those tributaries, I don't care what anybody says, is what helps control the water that you see on the road right now. When that rain came that we had a few weeks ago, those tributaries took that water. That's what helped get the water off the road that we see today. There are even more tributaries back there then than kind of what you see in the picture now, in that picture. That took that rain and that water controlling. You look at the other picture, that's what it looks like now. There is no place now for that water to go. That's why we have the problem that we have. It is state agencies that can solve that problem. They have equipment that is designed that literally can navigate swamps. They're designed to carve trenches in swamps to control water runoff like that. I don't know how many pieces of equipment the state have. I don't know the name of the agencies off the top of my head. But they have that equipment and this can be done. The problem is, nobody has the oomph to force the state to do it. But the only people that can force the state to do it are sitting in the front of this room. And the people that can force the people in the front of the room to do it are sitting in these chairs here. And until the people sitting in these chairs and the people that are not sitting in these empty chairs get up and demand the people up front to do it, it won't be done. It has to be forced upon the people in the front of this room to get up and start screaming at the state. I mean, to stop treating Newcastle like a third world nation. All the road work that we're promised to be done around the city of Newcastle, every time, every 6 months to a year, the state comes back to the city of Newcastle and says, oh, the work we're going to do next year, it's 2 years down the road now. And they keep pushing the work back a couple of years, and it keeps getting stretched and stretched and stretched. People in Newcastle need to stop letting the city stop.
Mr. Emery. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
You know, I agree with you, Mr. Emery. Mr. Barthel, I just don't remember, everybody remember probably 2 or 3 years ago, they cleaned the drainage ditch out next to, and I know land's almost level. You know, water can't run uphill. I understand the gravity there, but last time they cleared that drainage ditch out, it did make a big difference as far as water on the road. They came in with a backhoe and they just kind of went down.
Alongside the road there.
Yeah,
It's below grade.
I know that, but they still, that water went.
And it's, with all due respect, Mr. Platt, it was a very temporary fix, as you've seen, and it's something that you're correct. We need to call them, and we do, and say you need to come up and you need to dredge this area to see what we could do to stop, at least on that corner. And we've done that and we continue to do that. The big fix is the things you're talking about and the things, and I've had a conversation, and I think, and I hope this is part of the sea level rise discussion that's going on, because I spoke to Alice Real about that. I said, Mr. Zabak, when I received your email, and of course, we were looking at this, we had those significant rains, and I said, look, are we making sure that we're only looking at this marsh and these other areas out of Van Dyke and other places where, so it's not just, the Strand, et cetera. And I was told they are. But yeah, we're as diligent as we can in getting in touch with them and saying, you need to come out and do this. Now, the other option, and I apologize, Mr. Platt, if I'm, but the other option as we go through here is they just did a traffic study, which looked at that about putting a light where you're talking about it. And, now that was a WMAPCO study, which is about a 10-year plan. That's number one. The other plan is, or the other thing we can do is get the conservation district back out in the meantime to look at these things and to what can we do, not only on a temporary basis, but more on a long-term basis. And I think the long-term fix is going to come from, from whatever, is being discussed with the Sea Rise Committee.
Like I said, just call your senators and your representatives and tell them that's what I need. I mean, we're doing it. You have to put pressure on too. I mean, but you've got a bucket full of sand basically out there. We're at the place to go. I think, anyone else?
Excuse me, if you don't mind, I just want to say something about the Sea Level Rise Task Force very quickly. First, they were specifically tasked with looking at the impact on the entire city,
Right.
not just the Strand.
I understand.
And secondly, we've been admitted into this program. The study is going to begin in the fall. They have to select the contract engineering firm to be the contractor. And one of their early steps will be community meetings. So all you folks need to come to those meetings and talk to these engineers. It's not just what we up here can do. You all have to be involved as well. But that's specifically part of their program, of their plan, is to get a lot of community involvement and community input in formulating the plans. And this is not a quick fix. It's going to be years, but at least we're getting something moving. Thank you. Sorry.
No, absolutely.
That was half of your 3 minutes.
David Lansky, Chief of Google Fire Company. I just wanted to come here this evening and thank council and city staff for their generous support of the fire company. Obviously, we're into a busy time of year. We're saying this with call volume. The boat ramp is helping us be very successful out on the river, and Mother Nature is keeping us busy, obviously, in town with flood rescues and things like that. The biggest pass on I can provide to obviously council to provide to the community is we're not closing the roads for any convenience. We're closing them for your safety and ours. Other than that, we're doing pretty well, and we're here if you need us. And please don't forget, next Thursday is our monthly food truck fundraiser. So look forward to see you there, 5 to 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Now we're going to move on to the next, this new business. We have Mr. John Clark here from the Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife about the pier at Dobbinsville. So gentlemen, would you like to come forward?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. I'm John Clark. I'm the Fisheries Administrator for the Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife, and I'm here with Jeremy Ash. He's our Construction Manager for the Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife. And Jeremy will have the details. I'm just going to go over, give you a brief overview of what we want to do at Dobbinsville. This is another project that's taken a long time. I'm sorry to say that. But we've been in talks now with the hotel about building a fishing pier here at Dobbinsville, and so far it's been a very positive interaction we've had, and we're really excited about this. We had a whole bunch of fishing piers along the Chesapeake Delaware Canal, as I'm sure you're aware of. They were built back in the 80s. Those are deteriorating. Most of those being closed, so we've been losing fishing access in this area, and one of our goals is to increase fishing access. So we've dealt with the city here to get
worked with the trustees also of Newcastle Commons to get an easement. The city's got an easement from the trustees for a little bit of the land to cross over. It's, for this fishing pier. And in the meantime, now we're coming up to a point where what we need is a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum of agreement with the city to proceed with this, so we can put down in writing who's going to be responsible for what. And as far as that goes, I think we've had some good discussions about that. I think it's fairly straightforward what we like from the city. So on this, we're going to pay for the parking lot and the fishing pier. And typically in our agreements like this, we would ask the city to provide maintenance, routine maintenance, such as mowing the lawn around there, taking care of the lights, things like that. And we'll take care of all the major problems there that arise in the future. But to give you more details about what the pier will actually entail, I'm going to turn it over to our construction manager, Jeremy Ash.
Thank you very much. As you may know, there's currently a big gravel parking lot that's there now. So the concept plan, I'm not sure if you guys see it, hopefully you did. This is the concept plan that we have developed. It's about 120 feet by 120 foot paved parking lot with an entrance that's paved that goes onto behind there. We have 37 parking lot spaces, 88 accessible spaces, and then also a portable toilet screen, so a portable toilet can be put, and then it can't be, well, anything can be vandalized, but it's designed so it can't get flipped over or things like that. And they're pretty nice. And then from that parking lot, we have a pedestrian path that connects to the existing levee pedestrian path. We'll have some bollards so that the cars, things like that. And then it goes out onto the actual aluminum fishing pier. The aluminum fishing pier would be approximately 320 feet long out into the Delaware River, and it will tee at a 20 by 40 foot tee. The aluminum fishing pier will be supported, most likely, we're still having to design it, but most likely it will be on concrete piles. So I'm not sure if we all are familiar with the fishing pier that's at Woodlands Beach. Has anyone ever seen that? If you go online, go on Google, Woodland Beach, you'll see it's almost a copy and paste of that sort of design. That could be ready here as well, so they can see that. The other thing about this fishing pier is it's the ADA accessible. Said it's aluminum already, so it's going to be there. The one that was put in and Woodland Beach has been there for several decades, so this will be something that structure will be there for quite a long time. It'll have lights, so you can see evening. Also for the parking lot, we'll have lights as well. And lastly, this is what's called the gator dock. It's prefabricated dock, so basically it's very easily maintained. It's built very well. It's not something that's going to fall apart. It has nice structure. It's elegant, has a good design. It's a very nice feature to the landscape. And that's kind of what our proposed design is for this location.
Products themselves typically have about a 30-year life, don't they, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's a 30-year lifespan, but as long as it doesn't get too, it's pretty fresh.
Yeah.
So it will likely last longer. So what will go out first most likely would be a file. So if we use a timber file, probably or a concrete file, but then in our engineering analysis, we'll figure that out. I don't know.
Questions?
Yes.
There used to be signs along the river warning people that adults should eat only some few number of servings of fish from the river, and that pregnant women and children should not eat any. And so now we're to fish here. It has the river improved so that fish are now safe to eat, or do you plan to put up those signs?
Okay, well, there's two things going on there. Okay, so
Hey, yes, the river has actually cleaned up quite a bit. Our contaminant loads and the fish that we test has decreased quite a bit. And I think for just about all the fish from the river now, we're at, yeah, I mean, it's 1 8-ounce deal a month, I think is the criteria. But again, this is based on the EPA standard, which is based on parts per billion. And the weird thing is that commercially caught fish that you can buy in a market are governed by FDA regulations, which are on part per million. So a fish that we're telling you about that you're catching in the river, to be careful about the contaminant load in that. You could then go to a store and buy a fish that has a higher level than what you just threw back, because it's different methods of measuring the load on that. But for the most part, though, you know, to give a good example, striped bass, which would probably be the most targeted fish for fishing here like this, they do have a high contaminant load, especially the resident ones, the bigger ones. But recreational fishing for striped bass is mostly catch and release these days. Most people do not keep them, but if you did and you follow the guidelines we have, for example, the fishing guide about cutting out the dark meat, skinning the fish and all that, you can reduce the amount of contaminants that are still in the fish. But they do bioaccumulate. I mean, you know, even fish from the ocean, like tuna, of course, bioaccumulate mercury because they're top of the food chain. Everything they eat has a little bit in it. So, you know, there's no way to be 100% safe from these things. But
No, so you're gonna post those signs back on the pier?
we will have signs. In fact, that's one of the things we are working for as part of the department's also environmental justice initiative is also to what we're looking to do is have not only signs telling people where they get the information, but have it in different languages and use QR codes and then take people to different sites, you know, get the same information, but in whatever.
Yeah, the
native
signs
language
used to
happens.
be here in English and Spanish.
Yes, right. So we're going to do that again, and also some of the other languages that we know are very common. For example, we have a lot of Koreans that fish and also fish to take them home to eat. So we're gonna have it in several languages.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Zelch, you had a question?
I do have some question. So the pathway across, that's completely flat situation. Trying to understand.
So the pathway across, I don't have, everything would be ADA accessible. So right now it's just a concept plan, but so I don't have, you know, it goes up currently. It's not gonna be.
So it's going over the rocks that are there today.
Yes.
Okay. So in here it says a lighted parking lot. So overall question for us as a town, the park is from dusk to dawn, right? So do we want lights in the parking lot? Is it going to be open?
Well, so we can come to some kind of arrangement, but our fishing areas, for example, this pier, we're gonna be using 25% of it is coming out of state funds, either our fishing license, bond bill money, those type of things. 75% is coming out of federal aid, sport fish restoration funds. The guidelines for federal aid funds are that any fishing access has to be open 24/7 because fishermen like to fish at night a lot of times. So the town can do, I mean, the city of Newcastle, we can have limits on that, but our default is to any fishing area we build is open 24 hours a day for people fishing. Like we have signs posted in a lot of areas that say open dusk to dawn or open 24 hours for people who are actively fishing. If you're not actively fishing and it's after dark, then, you know, you're breaking the law. But that is just one of the strictures we work with under the federal aid guidelines.
Throughout the rest of the council thoughts on that? I mean, I just have concerns that normally we don't have that as an open time at night. And we're gonna have potential issues down there.
I mean, maybe not, but like you're saying, people fish at night because they fish with the tides. When you're fishing, your fish are moving with the tides. That's where you want to be. Some places, high tides, certain places, low tide. I don't have a problem with you, like 24 hours. Gee,
Lights are good.
But
I was just about to ask you what your opinion was on that as well, chief, and whether we would need a security camera just to.
Yeah, I would recommend cameras, absolutely.
What's the depth of the river at low tide at the end of the pier?
So you'll have the, it varies, but there's like 6 foot, holes. So that there's contours on this map. So like if you look at the T and then just go down from the T, you'll see 5 and then 6. So that means it's 4 to 5 feet deep. At low tide there. I think it's at the end. Yep, thank you.
anything else? Thank you. Thank you, guys. A motion to read resolution 2023-22, resolution supporting fishing pier at the fishing beach south of Dobbsville on Route 9. Within the city of Newcastle pier to be constructed and maintained by Delaware Fish and Wildlife. The project. Second. Okay. Whereas on June 14, 2015, City Council passed a resolution 2015-30 supporting the construction of a fishing pier south of Dobbsville on Route 9 within the city of Newcastle. Pier to be constructed and maintained by Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife, the project end. Whereas City Council supports and uses certain city-owned property as a projected location for purpose of providing entrance to the roadway, related parking lot, related facilities to supporting a lighted fishing pier with resident facility. And whereas trustees of the Newcastle Common, who own a portion of this affected land, also reviewed the project and has stated support for an easement to permit construction of a parking lot and related facilities for the project. And whereas the estimated fishing pier project construction will cost approximately $2 million, with $1.5 million being funded through federal aid in the Sports and Fish Restoration Fund Program, and the remaining $500,000 will come from the state funding, such as fishing licenses, bond bills, and/or sources subject to availability and/or appropriation. And whereas the state of Delaware will be responsible for such costs as the parking lot maintenance, the pier repairs, and the light fixtures replacements. Whereas all facilities will be constructed in a manner that projects integrity of the dike, and whereas the city will provide leasing services to the project, and whereas Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife will provide additional patrols and on-call services as needed. Whereas final plans will be responsible. Whereas final plans and responsibilities for the project will be subject to terms outlined in appropriate agreements between the city, the trustees of Newcastle Common, and the Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife. Whereas City Council determined that the proposed pier is in the best interest of the citizens of the city of Newcastle, and provide recreational fishing opportunities for the residents and visitors alike. Therefore, let it be resolved that the city of Newcastle hereby supports the construction of the fishing pier by the Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife in the city of Newcastle on Route 9 south in the area known as the fishing beach, adjacent to existing gravel parking lot area, and directs the city administrator to negotiate an MOA with the Division of Fish and Wildlife for the purpose of this construction of the pier. Any other questions?
I have a question. Just in the first paragraph, where it says the last sentence appeared to be constructed and maintained by Delaware Division of Fish and Wildlife. I just understood from the presentation that would be city, so I just wanted to see if we can correct that before we.
They were all maintained the most of the pier. We're, if I'm correct, the maintenance would be, the pier maintenance itself would be yours, but the lighting and the littler stuff would be our responsibility. Okay.
And I think we're giving the city administrator the authority to negotiate all that and have.
Correct.
We can put all that into the MOA.
Right.
Typically, what we do with towns, we're responsible for the pier itself. We would like the city or town to take care of, keep replacing the light bulbs, mowing, routine things like that.
All in favor of resolution 2023-22? Aye. The ayes have it.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Meeting is concluded. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.
No.
All right.